Hey guys, this is Denny.
And this is James from TeaDB.org, bringing you another episode, and this is episode number 9.
So, today we're going to be brewing some matcha. Matcha is a Japanese green tea that's very unique in the sense that this is probably the only tea that's processed in a certain way. And how it's processed is actually green tea leaves are pressed through between two extremely large pieces of stone, usually granite, and they're ground into this powdered tea. And then you, through the tea ceremony that we'll go through haphazardly here in a second, you'll go ahead and make matcha. So it's a Japanese tea. We're diving into some Japanese tea this week.
And I personally have never tasted matcha, but from what I know, it's an extremely potent thing.
It is the most potent form of tea in the sense of caffeine and antioxidants. So you're actually consuming the whole leaves. You're actually eating tea leaves.
So it's kind of like the Four Loko of tea.
Totally. Or logo of tea. Let's keep going. So James has never done this. I traditionally was not brewing matcha the right way. I would just enjoy it however I pleased, frankly. But after some research, I've tried doing it the correct way, and it's quite delicious this way. So I apologize. I won't be able to do it today because I had shoulder surgery. So I'm going to teach James how to do it. So we have a bunch of different tools that we're going to be using. The important part about matcha is that you're whisking the water in with the matcha powder. So in order to create a fine powder, we're going to use a sieve or to sift through the actual matcha powder itself and make it really fine ground. And then we're going to use a whisk and what's called a chawan bowl to make the matcha within. So first things first, James, you're going to take our ceremonial grade 1 matcha that we just got from our spring harvest here.
All right.
And you're going to open that up, and then maybe a little bit of matcha powder is going to pop out, but it doesn't look like it. Smells nice, yeah?
It smells quite nice.
Ooh. And then we're going to pull, using our stick here, our little bamboo stick, we're going to pull out about a gram out. It's going to be a pretty large looking piece here.
And where am I going to put that gram?
So you're going to sift that gram of matcha powder through the sieve here into our chawan.
Okay.
So it's kind of a multi-hand process here.
Okay,
so first things first.
Straight into the sieve.
Exactly.
Okay.
There you go. Cool.
All right. So I got my spoonful and into the sieve.
Okay. And now we're going to delicately transfer the sieve over the chawan. And then what James is going to do is just lightly tap the sieve against the wall of the chawan, which is going to slowly transfer the matcha powder into the actual chawan itself. So he's slightly tapping it. Matcha is a very fine product. It's very delicate. It should be stored in a cold place, even in your refrigerator. I keep mine in my refrigerator. And it's a pretty ceremonial grade 1 matcha from the spring harvest is expensive. But it's very potent, and it's a delicious drink. It's something that you wouldn't just kind of, sip on casually at the office. This is something that you definitely attend to.
So would you recommend someone that's just getting into matcha to kind of start at the top or go lower at the grade 3 or 4?
Yeah, maybe starting with grade 3 or 4. It's going to be a little cheaper and it'll give you the flexibility to experiment. And no reason not to kind of, if you're buying some matcha, go ahead and just order a whole bunch. So it's definitely cheaper the grades, farther grades down you go. And the grading is based on the freshness of the leaves, the harvest, the leaves that are picked in the sizing of the leaves as well. So those things will all influence the taste, the experience of the matcha, and the price. So you can see that James is just using this little bamboo spoon and is lightly pushing the rest of the matcha balls that kind of have formed inside of the package through. And so he'll just lightly tap that in, and it looks like he's about done. So one thing to keep in mind too is that we've already preheated our chawan before. So he's going to lightly put that down. So we have about 1 gram of matcha powder right here in our chawan. So the next step is going to be that you're going to take 100 milliliters of hot water, and we're using kind of green tea temperatures here, so 100-ish Fahrenheit, and you're going to use 100 milliliters and put it into our chawan.
All right, let's do that. So this gaiwan is 100 milliliters, if you're wondering how we got to these exact measurements. All right, and now we're going to pour this into the chawan.
Perfect. So already the actual beverage itself is beautiful. It's got this deep green to it. Oh, it's one of the coolest parts about matcha for me is the color, no doubt. It's just so vibrant. So the next step is going to be we're actually going to whisk together the matcha powder with the water itself. So go ahead and start whisking, James. So you're going to use a pretty violent whisk back and forth in kind of a straight line across the chaiwan. The idea is that you're creating a bunch of bubbles and you're aerating the tea itself. You're incorporating all of the matcha in with the water itself, but you're also aerating the matcha. And it's going to produce a really beautiful lime green film on the top of the air bubbles. So I give it a little bit more violent, looking great, looking great.
And Denny was telling me before, this is actually why the walls of the chawan are so built upwards, because you're supposed to stir this so violently at this stage.
Definitely, yeah. And you can go crazy with all the different tools and the finest materials and so on and so forth. It's up to you. It's fun for me to buy some of the stuff to experience it how it would be traditionally experienced, but if you're just at home, you can do this in a tall mug. Don't worry about it. The tea is meant to be enjoyed, so enjoy yourself. So that's pretty good. Okay, perfect. Now let's look. Oh, that's wonderful. Well done, sir. So the next part is going to be that James is going to lift the whisk up almost just to the very top of the tea itself, and he's going to slowly, in a zigzag pattern, try to remove as many of those little bubbles that we're seeing as possible to create kind of a beautiful, what's called the green jade film on the top of the matcha.
Yeah. And so if you were to go onto the internet, theoretically, and look up real Japanese tea masters, unlike myself, they would do a much better job at this particular stage.
It's something that in tea ceremony is practiced for years and is perfected over the course of years. So there's no doubt that with this brewing matcha is an involved process, and we are. I'll speak for myself, and I think given that James is doing it for the first time on camera live here, I am by no means an expert. But that being said, I totally enjoy drinking this, and it's kind of a fun thing to do. So that's looking pretty good.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, so my favorite part, drinking. This is so wonderful. So we're making a thin matcha. In order to make a thick matcha, you would use roughly 2 to 3 times as much matcha to water.
Oh, wow.
So it would be dramatically, in terms of the viscosity of the drink itself, the texture would be much thicker, and the flavor is wildly more intense, and the caffeine and all the things. So
if you want to get tea drunk, then you should do the thick powder.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
noted.
First impressions, what do you think?
It's really, really nice. Definitely a really grassy flavor, kind of similar to sencha, but the mouthfeel and stuff is very different.
Totally grassy flavor, and totally on the mouthfeel. And actually, I've definitely made matcha poorly, and one thing about matcha that's made poorly is that the mouthfeel is gritty. You can those balls of the matcha powder that we sifted through would actually still be held within the tea, so you'd be drinking, and then suddenly you would have a piece of kind of dryness on your mouth. It is a very unpleasant experience overall. So while it is, we're kind of going all shishi on our tea making here, it does make a difference.
Yeah. And so what would be some of the effects of brewing matcha, for example, at too hot of a temperature? Like if I went all the way to a boil here.
You would just, in the same way that green tea is going to get bitter or astringent, you're going to have too much of a bitter matcha, which unfortunately really will ruin the experience. So I'd say if you're going to do anything, err on the side of cooler water than hotter water. Mm-hmm. And, using your variable control temperature kettle should be pretty easy.
Yep. Mm. And you said that this, you store this in your refrigerator. Is this something that we should drink quickly, or if we store it in the refrigerator, it'll be good for years?
So, good question. Matcha, because of the way that it's processed and how fine it is a very temperamental product, and you can really see that. And we'll actually have some close-ups of different grades of matcha, and then the same grade of matcha that's been aged for years. So I actually didn't even get through all of my matcha from last year, Spring Harvest Grade 1, and you can see the difference in the color. So definitely drink this up quick. This is something that, because we're getting it kind of late spring in the United States, I'll drink this through the summertime, and it's totally wonderful.
So this has been great. So where can we purchase this tea?
So I got this from Ryu Mei. Let me make sure I get that right. So it's ryu-mei.com, I believe, if you look them up. They're a great company out of Japan. I found them on eBay. But if you go around looking for matcha on eBay, it's a good place to do it. I'm actually not too knowledgeable about different vendors for matcha. So
interesting. If
anyone wants to leave a comment, let me know. I'd appreciate it. But I've had this a few times that I ordered from these guys. These guys are fantastic, fast shipping. Yep. And I mean, the matcha is really wonderful.
Yep. So and I've ordered from these guys for tea canisters and that kind of thing. And you can see some of those behind me. But they've been really fast, and I think they ship from the U.S. So you'll get your shipment quite quickly.
Yeah, actually, when I ended up buying the Chawan from there, I got it from Japan directly too. So it does depend. But wonderful tea, good customer service. And they're more than willing to answer any questions.
Great.
Cool. All right. So that's been another episode of TeaDB.
Yeah, thanks for watching, guys.
And we'll see you guys next week.